o'clock, I'd like to call the September 6th meeting of the Person County Board of Commissioners to order at this time and recognize that we do have a quorum. I've asked Commissioner Sims to lead us in an invocation and Commissioner Palmer in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this night. We thank you for the many blessings you've given us. Thank you for allowing us to be here tonight to take care of county business. We just ask that you would lead us and guide us as we go forth and help us to make wise decisions for our county. Dear Heavenly Father, we pray for our county, our state, and our nation. And we also, Lord, we pray for peace. We pray these things in your most heavenly name. Amen.
Participate, please uncover and we'll do the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
One nation. Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on our agenda is discussion, adjustment, and approval of the agenda as presented. I'd like to request that we add a closed session to the agenda for personnel matters, which would be closed session number 1. Any discussion or other adjustments? Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Motion to approve the agenda as stated with the closed session number 1 added. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Next on the agenda is recognition of Person County by the Fire Chiefs Association. Fire Marshal Adam Morris.
Good evening, how are y'all?
Good evening.
Hey, how are you?
I'll keep this kind of short because I know you got a busy agenda tonight, but over the last few years, you all, the Board of Commissioners, have done a lot of good things for the emergency services in Person County, especially the fire departments and the rescue squad. So we don't want that to go unnoticed. At the last Person County Chiefs Association meeting held in August, a motion was made to purchase a plaque out of the Fire Chiefs Association fund, not the fire tax, to present to you all on your support that you have given to us. So I have a few members here tonight from the various departments across the county. Of course, tonight is Tuesday night, which is training night, so where most of them are. So on behalf of the Person County Chiefs Association and the Person County Fire Marshal's Office, we want to say thank you for your support and dedication that you have shown and given to the fire departments and rescue squads to serve Person County during your tenure as County Commissioner. Presented to you on September 6, 2022. Chairman Gordon Powell, Vice Chairman Derek Sims, Commissioner PJ Gentry, Commissioner Charlie Palmer, and Commissioner Kyle Puryear. So hopefully when the auditorium gets fixed up, this could be one of the ones you hang on the wall in here so you can see for future references.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Appreciate all you do.
Miss Kathy, Assistant County Manager. can you step up here? So the same thing goes for you. We know you came in, we had a fire marshal here, he retired. There was a gap before I took over this position. There was a lot of behind the scenes activities going on throughout the county to get stuff going as well. So we want to do the same for you. Chief Fletcher, which is the president, was going to present this to you, but he was unable to come tonight. So on behalf of the Person County Chiefs Association, Person County Fire Marshal's Office, thank you for your support and dedication that you've shown and given to the fire departments and rescue squad to serve Person County during your tenure as the county manager. Presented on September 6th.
Thank you very much.
I'll leave this up here for you.
That'd be good.
Thank you
Madam
again.
Clerk.
Yeah, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is public hearing. We have a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. And Ms. Sally Gong.
It's sort of hard to follow that up,
Yeah.
right?
You can do it.
Do you bring gifts?
I didn't bring any gifts, no plaques, sorry. I come before you tonight with the addition of a private roadway to the county within a couple of weeks of each other to property owners who will access their homes via a private easement approached us wishing to construct homes on their newly purchased land. There was already one home down that private easement, so that's a total of 3, which enacts the ordinance for us to require that that easement be named. Since that time, since we have begun the easement naming process, the home, which was already existing, sold. So I repeated the process with that homeowner and have not heard from them. Also, since that time, the property owner of one of the proposed homes has gone silent and is not responding to voicemails and emails. So although my paperwork says that I recommend that you approve the roadway naming, I am today suggesting that we put a hold on this until I can get some positive interaction with the new homeowner and one of the potential homeowners who lives out of town.
Okay, that's a request to continue this hearing on September 19th.
Yes, sir.
Somebody,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, please.
may I ask a question, please?
Sure.
We do have to name the road at some point though, correct?
That is correct. I am somewhat concerned that the individual who is not responding to me may decide not to build in that area.
Oh, so make a difference.
And
Okay.
I've asked her that specific question several times and I have not received a response. And so if that person is not going to build, there's no point in doing this right now. And I'd love to confirm that before we move forward.
Okay.
And she's got permits on file, but people do that and then they don't build. So it's hard to know sometimes.
All right, all in favor of the request to delay this or continue it rather September 19th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. Okay, thank you, Ms. Vaughn. So that, no action required. So no need for item number 2. At this time on our agenda, we do have 10 minutes set aside for public comment. The public is invited in and we have 2 speakers, I believe, to address the full board with their comments. Madam Clerk, who's the first?
All right, would you like to set a time limit?
Yes, please. I'm sorry, 5 minutes. We
Okay,
added 2.
perfect. And we have 2 individuals. The first one is Mr. Jim Brooks of Samora.
Appreciate the opportunity to meet with you guys again. I was here in July. I think at the meeting, talk about the preserve development that's in planning stages still. And I guess I just really wanted to revisit that conversation to find out and inquire with the board if there's been any activity, discussion, or decisions regarding their request to add 32 interior lots to their development plan, which was approved by your planning and zoning board back in May. So I guess the question is, I'm just here to find out if there's been any activity. I know the project is paused for whatever reason, I don't know, but I'm just trying to find out if this board has had, again, any activity, discussion, or decisions regarding that request from the developer for the 32 lots, interior lots.
Thank you, sir.
I think that's a
Clark.
question, he should address that to the planning director. And we have a new planning director here, and we'll introduce you to him. And he
Well, the
can,
planning board already approved it and recommended it that it be approved by this board. I don't know where it sits right now.
He will get you an answer.
Yeah.
Yes, he'll
Why
get in
wouldn't
touch
you
with
guys give me
Wait.
an answer?
This is not a dialogue type session.
It's a question.
Yeah, and we'll get you an answer. I mean, from the proper person.
Well, then let me take another 2 minutes to
Sure.
just reiterate. the point.
Sure.
There's 32 lots that the developer is attempting to add to his development plan to change it from 162 lots that he has planned to 194, whatever. Anyways, these are interior lots that don't have any lake access. But this is a gateway and a platform for the developers to request community dock permits from the Lake Authority. And that's where our concern is, community, the lake residents, and a number of residents around the county that utilize the lake, because it has potential to add a huge number of watercraft to the lake. And the platform for that community dock permit, the gateway through that is this board's approval of what the planning board has approved and recommended for your approval on those 32 interior lots. So I just want to reiterate the point that there's a lot of residents around the lake that are very concerned about boating safety on the lake, not trying to stop development, just maintain boating safety. And adding 200, 300, 400 boats on a busy weekend to that lake is a recipe for disaster. And, there's a lot of residents that are concerned. So I would just ask, last comment, that as that item hits the agenda for you guys to either approve or disapprove, and this board has to vote on it. That's where it is, to my understanding right now. I'll talk to the planning and zoning board again. I attended that meeting in May, as did about 135 other residents from around the lake. But I would just ask respectfully that you make sure that when that hits your agenda to vote, that you get that agenda posted early so that the public is aware of it. And I hope it'll be done at a meeting at 7 p.m. like this one, as opposed to 9 a.m. on a weekday, so that anybody that's concerned, and it'll be a large turnout for that vote. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Brooks.
All right, and our next speaker is Mr. John C. of Samora.
Good evening, John
Good
C.
evening.
from Samora. Definitely know that this is not a dialogue, so I won't try to make it one. I appreciate what Jim's words were on the Lake Authority issue over there at the reserve, and I am ditto what he said, and I would hope that that is a big announcement for the community so that we could voice our opinions and it doesn't happen in the dead of night or in the middle of the day when everybody's at work. What I would like to talk about is all the good things that are happening in Person County, and how I would hope that this board would do everything in its power to make sure that you didn't diminish any of those great things that are going on in Person County. So the last meeting on the 15th, you guys had an appointment to the Board of Aging, and you had an opening that was vacant for, or at least you were taking applications on for over 2 months. You had one applicant that had submitted an application about 2 months before the 15th of August. And what I found particularly interesting, and why I said, I don't think you guys want to diminish the fine reputation of all the good things that are going on in Person County. But when you have two people who submit their resumes or their applications, because it really wasn't a resume, on the 12th of August, after the agenda package is already printed up, and you vote on it on the 15th, and questions are asked, if I remember right, PJ, you may have had, Commissioner Gentry, you may have had a open question that was not answered at that meeting, and a vote was taken, if I recall correctly. It just smacks of the wrong thing, wrong impression. So you had the person who applied 2 months earlier, actually reached out to Kurtar and some other people and did her homework, and was her main job, current job, is doing exactly that. And the two other ladies, not to diminish from them, but wow, they applied on Friday. One of them got appointed on Monday. It was a 3-2 vote. You know what it looked like to me? You guys have a problem with Ms. Bradshaw. She can't get along with anybody according to you guys, but a lot of us like her because she's sharp. And it seems like, I don't want to say that this is the case. And it not in any way reference to the two ladies that applied. But I mean, are you guys really gonna say, I'll take the county idiot over Ms. Bradshaw because she asks pointed questions and she does hard work and rolls up her sleeves. To me, I found it eye-opening. And I just thought I would let the rest of the people who may be listening know that the two applicants that were besides Liz's were filed the day before the BOC meeting where the vote was taken and one of them got appointed with a open-ended question. Lastly, we may have our first woman in the local Elks tonight, or whenever the vote is. We're hoping that turns out well. That may be a glass ceiling that gets broken here. We don't know. It sure seems like maybe some changes for Person County, and I wanted to let you know that I think we ought to have the best representation, not just the way you guys have been playing the game. So anyway, I know you don't want to diminish all the great things that are happening in Person County. And I'm sure tonight you're going to start acting. Thank you.
Item number 3 on the agenda is motion to approve the consent agenda as stated. Questions or comments, additions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I
Just
do.
please.
Mr. Seep, you kind of opened the door for me because that was a question that I had from that meeting about the process of board appointments, because I've witnessed what I would call a willy-nilly process of when we appoint people to boards, whether or not we know them, do we like them, are they my friend? And then I went back and I looked on September 21st of 2020, Mr. Sims was a newly appointed commissioner, and he recommended that we have a public hearing at the next meeting to interview 4 people for an open slot on a board, which we did. We had a big public meeting and we selected a candidate, or the board selected a candidate. That was the only time I have seen, the times that I've been to these commission meetings, the previous 5 or 6 years, and being on this board for almost 18 months now. This is the only time we've ever had public interviews for board positions. So then we have this process here of someone who's got the qualifications, works in the aging field, has an application in, and at the last minute, I walk in on a Monday morning meeting and there's 2 applications there that that I had not seen, no one's talked to me about, no resume, just the application. And it's voted on without any discussion. And I just want to know, where's our process? What is our process? Because it seems like one time we have an open meeting, a public meeting to select somebody, the next time we appoint 6 people all at once. And then this happens, and I'm just like, what is our process as a county? What is it that we are not doing consistently? Because I just think this is crazy that we don't have a process that we follow for everything. So my question is, why we don't there. And also I'd like to know about the contract for bond counsel services. I'd like to have a clarification on the bond that looks like we're proposing to raise bond money for something big in 2023. So I'd like to have more information on that.
Chairman,
Yes, please.
any one commissioner can remove an item from our consent agenda and we can have it as a presented item. And Ms. Warenberg, who submitted that agenda abstract, is here to present that item. But first, our rules of procedure say that we would first approve the consent agenda, less that one item you have a question on, item number E. And then we would have Ms. Warenberg come up immediately following that motion to present that item.
That's fine.
So first, we'd like to have our board consider the consent agenda minus item E.
I would make a motion to approve that. However, I would like to go back and address our process at a subsequent meeting where we bring this up and discuss the process and how we we do board placements. There needs to be a consistency here. And I find that we've done it 3 or 4 different ways.
Okay, point of order, let's, and we can do that. It's not a problem.
Thank
So,
you.
Do we want to still have a motion
Well,
to approve with deletion of item E?
yes, I make that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Bond Counsel Services. This is a request to engage bond counsel to help us with the sale of bonds for this upcoming school issuance that you all have supported for the 38 million for deferred school projects.
Okay.
In order to issue bonds, you have to have a bond counsel firm to do that. That's a special service that no one else can really do. And so the attorney and I engaged with or had sent out an RFP to sort of see who was providing those services. And they all turned in a proposal. And then he and I met with the one that we felt like was the best fit for Person County. They were all equivalent as far as the estimates that they would charge for that service. And so this is the company that we felt like could do that for Person County.
Okay. So this is for 38 million for school bonds.
Yes.
This would be a public bond.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
just add, obviously, bond counsel services from law firms, it's a very specialized area of the law. A handful of law firms in North Carolina are qualified to provide that advice and representation on public bond issues and other forms of financing. One of those is Parker, Poe, Adams, and Bernstein that has offices in North Carolina, in Raleigh and Charlotte, and several other offices in other states. Great reputation. I talked with several attorneys about the lead partner in this firm that we recommend to you, Rebecca Joyner. She has extensive hands-on experience with the state of North Carolina, university system bond issues, and lots for municipalities and counties. So no question about this firm's expertise and extensive experience. They propose a dedicated team to work with our finance director and with our outside consultants and ultimately with the Board of Commissioners through the very detailed and extensive process that also includes permission or approval by the local government commission and the state treasurer's office. The bond counsel firm will lead us through that. So with you through that, if the board sees fit, in a way that the bond counsel firm can then sign an opinion certifying several things to potential purchasers of the bonds and citizens generally, that you have authority. With Person County, your commission has authority to issue bonds. That they probably are tax exempt, which gets a lower interest rate. That's one of the matters that the firm will opine on, which is very important. That all the requirements of the federal and state securities laws are satisfied. And otherwise, that the bond issue meets all the requirements of that. So this is the firm we recommend for.
Who's the potential purchaser of these bonds?
The local government commission in the state is the entity that sells the bonds and other instruments on behalf of cities and counties. And it's a competitive process. The purpose of which is to get the lowest interest rate.
Most competitive, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, okay, now, with a little of the confusion there, but, the board sees fit to move along as
So the item for the board
item.
is the item that was pulled from the
Right.
consent
Mhm.
agenda.
It just needed clarification. I mean, there was no clarification, no discussion in my world, so.
It's a very important matter.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the contract for bond counsel services.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. Under new business, item number 4, Republic Services update for the Upper Piedmont Regional Landfill. Mr. Wade Bailey.
Commissioners, good evening.
Yes, sir.
Hey, so for those of you who may not know me, name's Wade Bailey, General Manager for Republic Services. I have 5 landfills and Upper Piedmont as one of my landfills. And I wanted to get in front of you all tonight and let you know of a business decision that we're going to make that's going to impact our hours. But kind of wanted to give you a little reasoning of why we're going to do that. So, as we amended our last host agreement, the last amendment, we put in there that the residents of Person County would get 2,000 tons of free disposal for handbag waste, household waste at our convenience center. Unfortunately, in the last 2 years, we've lost one major contract at the landfill, and we just lost a third of another contract that started in July for us. With that being said, our Saturday hour operations, our loads, tons are extremely light. If I had to do a guess, it's about 5 loads on a Saturday that we're staying open for. So we're looking to close down on Saturdays, but we are also going to open our landfill Monday through Friday by additional hour in the evening. We close at 4 o'clock now, and we're going to push that to 5 o'clock. That will help some of our transporters and hopefully assist with any residents that live close by to offset the Saturday hours. The last time that we did this, we closed back in COVID in 2020, and Republic did not do a great job of communicating that to the residents. So we look to put an ad in the local newspaper and possibly even do a radio ad, so that way the residents can be aware of the situation. The first Saturday that we would close, we're looking to close on 9/24. So we would still have 2 weekends to where we would be open at our normal hours. And again, I just wanted to get in front of y'all, share that with you, and maybe hear some feedback if you have it.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
Certainly, I know you talked about citizens of Person County and service to them. I got to believe that a lot of people use the service up there on Saturday who work Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock. You work 5 o'clock, you're not going to have time to go up there to the landfill and put anything in there. I know I go up there on the weekends. So, I know there's nothing we can do as county commissioners, but I certainly wish you guys would reconsider that.
Okay.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, would it be possible to maybe take one of those instead of an hour every day, maybe just having one day that it's open till 6 or 6:30? And maybe the other 2 days open till 5? Would you be able to adjust it somehow to, I know it might change when it gets dark earlier, so that would be problematic, but maybe giving a little bit more room.
Yeah, I think, part of me being here, we always want to be a good business partner, so we're open to ideas and, making adjustments where we can. I will take that feedback and I will see what we can do. We've also thought about possibly staying open for at least one Saturday throughout the weekend or throughout the month. But we would just have a scale operator there, and that would be it, instead of bringing in all of our employees and starting up the yellow iron and all. of
What
that.
about just a half day on Saturday?
Yeah, that's what our normal, so
Okay,
I should have probably explained that. So we're open till noon
Okay.
on Saturdays, the way it stands now.
options.
All right.
Okay, there's
Any other-
flexibility.
Any other questions?
I'll say, I'll say it's a business decision, but there will be, as Commissioner Sims mentioned, there will be some impact. I agree that 5 o'clock is, I mean, people work Saturdays is their only option to get to a landfill. I think I thought of possibly, just having an alternating just one weekend or one Saturday in a month. It's better than no Saturday in a month. And I think, and you could promote that Saturday as the day that you're opened. I mean, from till 12 o'clock. I mean, that's better than nothing. And Republic is a good corporate partner with Person County, and we want to preserve that. But I feel there will be some negative impact to the people that rely of going to that landfill on Saturdays that cannot make it during the weekdays because they have a 8 to 5 job.
Yeah, we definitely want to stay away from the notes and comments that we got the last time. So we are willing to work and adjust and hopefully make it feasible for all.
Okay, thank you, sir. And
y'all.
appreciate all the consideration you can give the citizens
Yes, sir.
because it is important. And we thank you for coming and look forward to hearing some replies or responses pretty soon.
All right. Y'all enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 5 on the agenda is a request to authorize appropriation from Economic Catalyst Fund to support a public water line extension in the county to support current and future industry expansion along the Jim Thorpe Highway. Mr. Ralph Clark.
Mr. Chairman, in the expansion of Hollywood, they were intending to tap onto their line behind the fence and run it a significant route down the road in front of the plant. And of course, even I would say that's not a wise move, based on, sooner or later, we'd have a parallel line there. So we presented it to the Economic Development Board, and they had funds available to, I guess you'd call it incentivize this project, in the tune of $80,000 to extend this 12-inch line down the highway. And we did have that approval, or that approval to recommend to you this expenditure. It does a couple of things. One, it gives that 12-inch line an area, puts it in an area that we got someone else to help us pay for it. But also it allows for future expansion down that highway back toward the city of Roxborough. And also it will improve the water flow through there because it will make that loop back into Roxborough through the highway. So we're recommending that you approve this request.
Commissioner, questions?
I just have one quick question. The agreement that I noticed that's in there between this, it's 23 years old. Has it been reviewed lately? Okay, but I'm just saying that's just something that I caught on that. Mr. Chairman, I think this is a great idea. I was at that meeting with you. I think this is a good investment.
My knowledge, that agreement has not been reviewed recently. Seems to work well.
Okay, it's been 23 years. I just don't know if it needs a review.
That's okay.
It would break my heart. I did that agreement 23 years ago. Yeah. But I saw my name on that.
That's review.
Just a suggestion.
Just wait till
just-
after November.
This is a request for appropriation by the board from this
Mhm.
fund. You see, if the board sees fit and approves that appropriation, we would draft a simple written agreement
Mhm.
with a private entity for them to use those funds for that public purpose. to extend the line. And the extension of that line has greater public purpose,
Yes.
and possibilities, as you know, manager said.
It does. And two, I think we need to take into consideration Hollywood and what they're doing there with their development, $61 million, I believe, something in that category. But that's a significant amount of investment versus a smaller amount here for us that does make common sense to do, as well as it opens the door for growth or expansion along that corridor as well, along the Jim Thorpe Highway. Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion for the request?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we authorize the appropriations request from the Economic Development Catalyst Fund for this project.
Have a motion on the floor. Any other questions or comments? Hear none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carries. Thank you, sir. Item number 6, American Rescue Plan funding recommendations. Kathy?
Good evening, Commissioners. I am here to share recommendations for ARP funding that were developed by a committee of staff members. If you'll remember, we went through a process earlier this year, back before your budget retreat in February, where we asked departments to submit some proposals for project ideas that they have. The push behind the American Rescue Plan is to identify projects that help to improve equity and are transformational for the communities in which they are implemented. We did share with you those proposals in February. We recognized that the rules and regulations and guidelines around this coming from the federal government were continuously changing. So we continue to monitor those developments and learn more about the expectations around this funding. You'll recall that we have taken some steps in the meantime to get some policies in place. You have also approved a grant project ordinance, which will enable us to use the ARP money to pay salary and benefits of our employees and supplant those salary and benefits costs, which we have moved into another area of our budget. Those are now general fund dollars that we can use for what we're calling ARP enabled projects. So you now have flexibility to use this funding. You are not tied to the same deadlines that were originally imposed by the American Rescue Plan. Initially, we thought we had to have the money encumbered by the end of 2024 and spent by 2026. But now that we have supplanted salary and benefits, we are actually expending those funds, but we have freed up dollars, the same amount that we received through the ARP, which now will be located in our general fund to fund these various project proposals or for any other use that the board sees fit. As you will recall, you have already set aside $2.75 million of the total $7.6 million that we received to reserve for broadband expansion. So we do know that that a provider has been awarded a great grant in the county, but we are still waiting to find out details of their amended project and enter into an agreement with them to move forward with that project. And we will have subsequent opportunities for grant funding and matching to continue our broadband expansion. So we do have that money reserved for that purpose. During the budget process, you also set aside $82,000 to fund a wheelchair lift at the Kirby Theater and also to install a cargo elevator. So we are moving forward with the wheelchair lift portion of that project, but you will find in the recommended projects that we'll go over today that there is a revised proposal for installing an actual elevator on the exterior of the Kirby that would be much more functional and less disruptive than the original proposed cargo lift. So as I said, we did have a committee of staff who met. We leveraged the management team that already meets on a regular basis. We also included our Assistant Finance Director, Tracy Clayton, on that committee, as she has been very involved with the ARP process. And we included our lead for North Carolina fellow, Keshav Javadi. So the committee met. We had a scoring matrix that we used to review. We, on an individual basis, reviewed each project proposal, and we scored and made notes. And we used that as the starting point for our discussion in our meeting. So we did have a thorough discussion about each of these projects. We then followed up with the departments who had presented the proposals. We had them make adjustments to the proposals based on the feedback received from the committee. And then we did finalize our recommendations. So as you will see in your packet, the committee has recommended approximately $4 million in projects. If those were all funded, then there would still be a remaining balance of approximately $850,000 in the ARP fund. But it is certainly up to the board as to whether or not you would like to proceed with the recommendation as it's presented, or if you would like to have further discussion about funding some of those projects or part of those projects now, holding off on others. There's also a listing there of the projects that were not recommended by the committee for various reasons. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have about that. We did include a brief reason next to each of those. And tonight we do have the Register of Deeds, Tanya Wilson, Animal Services Director, Kelly Oakley, Recreation Arts and Parks Director, John Hill. They are all here to answer any questions that you may have about those recommended projects. But just to summarize, there is a spay, neuter, and microchip program, which is funding for a 3-year program there with the Animal Services Department. Rail corridor acquisition and greenway planning, which would fall within Recreation Arts and Parks, and that is to acquire property along the rail line for approximately 8.7 miles from Southern Roxborough to the Durham County line to begin the process of creating a system of trails that would tie in with the Rails to Trails initiative. County Parks Transformation, this proposal from Recreation Arts and Parks would install ADA accessible playgrounds at 3 of our parks and expand walking trails to include bike lanes on all 10 of our walking tracks, which loop around our parks. This would add space along each track so that children would have an area to skateboard, roller skate, ride their bikes, and it would be out of the pedestrian path. There is another project recommended for upgrades at the Kirby Theater to make it more accessible and to improve some of the equipment, improve safety, and reduce liability there. There has been a lot of public support for either a splash pad or a public pool. So there is a splash pad that has been proposed as part of the ARP funding. And then from the Register of Deeds, we have a project to digitize records going back to 1790. So this will help preserve these unique records that are currently housed in our Register of Deeds. It protects them and it makes them much more accessible to the public. So with that summary, I will be glad to answer any questions you have or invite staff up to answer questions as well.
I have a couple questions, Mr. Chair. One, actually several of these, but the rail corridor acquisition and greenway planning, do we know for sure Norfolk Southern Railway will sell that land to us, or is that discussion already happened as far as talking to someone about that?
I'll let John answer what we know at this point.
Right. I'm just saying, I'm trying to get some clarification on that.
So at this point, there is an entity that is working with Durham that actually works with the railroad company in their acquisitions. And I don't want to get into too much, detail of, who or what the company is. My understanding is that there is a movement now that the railroad court, that the Norfolk Southern is in the real estate business now. This particular project, that amount of money right there is not necessarily going to get you, all your bells and whistles for the land or the actual finished product, but that is kind of a placeholder because these companies that acquire railroad corridors basically they acquire them themselves, and then they approach the counties or the municipalities, and they convey them back to the counties and the municipalities for a certain price or for a certain percentage rate, or a certain whatever works for the county, basically.
It's like
So we do
railroad
have
flipping.
Say again?
Is this railroad flipping?
Yeah, it actually is railroad flipping, and so that's kind of as you see in the packet, it's kind of us doing our due diligence to make sure that we're in place if indeed that company moves forward all the way to Foxborough, because we're trying to look out for the best interest of our constituents. Whether you make green land out of it or not, just having the ability to have the actual railroad corridor.
Well, they've already sold a section of that, if I'm not mistaken, in reading your notes here, that's, they've to a private owner, I guess, for a section of that railroad. I don't know how much they bought, but still, so you have a little break there, but it pretty much can run from here all the way to Durham, though. Is that right? Yeah.
And now the concept is not necessarily rails to trails, but it's rails with trails. Because, in a lot of counties and cities, those are broke up. And so they have to find ways to get around whoever bought the actual property, or, or head back towards the highway and go along the highway and then scoot back towards the rail. So there's a number of different ways to work that project.
Okay, thanks. My other question was with the splash pad. I mean, we've talked about this. I know I've heard about pools, forever.
It's like 15 years of my life.
Well, so my question is, has there been any thought about, okay, let's say, okay, we go with a splash pad. Where would we put it? Any thought on that? Is there a location in mind or no?
So right now, the company that actually gave us the quote for the pad, they would be doing the research of the best fit for the actual county. We already had sort of a concept plan of what it originally looked like back in 2016. When we had an architect draw up a site plan for the Huck Sansbury. We also have plenty of land and plenty of parking at the sportsplex. Those are the key elements that you need. You need plenty of land, then you need ample parking. But when you put a facility in like this, it kind of becomes a theme park. So those right now are the two that stick out.
And I have another question for the digital imaging of records signing. So it looks like we're going back from 1790 to 1994.
Yes,
That's what this is saying. So I guess I was like, in your words, how big of a help would this be for your department?
Well, it would also be a help to the public because a lot of people do genealogy. It'll be help to the banks, it'll be attorneys. This would also save our backbone to Person County because I have the original records and they're kind of fading a little bit, and I'm really concerned of them fading away. And it's really important to save our history because it can't be recreated.
Right.
They're saved in splotches, like they might have saved some here, might have saved some there, but we've had some unforeseen occurrences in the last couple of years. And this would solve a lot of problems, as in some of the books missing on the computer. But it would also help when y'all were looking for a project or something, you would have it at your fingertips instead of running down to the register of deeds office. But I like you to come down, I really would. but it would really be a great help to you as individuals and to everyone that wants to know the history of Person County, or they doing business or outside people coming in. It's a great deal. And I just want to preserve because it's the backbone of Person County.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, did I answer your
You
question?
did. That's one. Thank you. I appreciate
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, one quick question. If we go ahead and approve these funds for the use and they don't end up getting used for that purpose, do the funds go back to the fund that they came out of, that holding
Back
fund?
to our ARP pot of
For
funds.
reuse, okay.
Yes.
Well, the way I understand the process, and I may be wrong, but it's creative bookkeeping recommended by the state, supplanting salaries. So the funds would be in a continuous flow, but there's no end to that. It could be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years
Right.
down the road. So we'll, we don't have to do anything, or we can pick and choose.
Mhm.
We can get information on other parts of this and come back
That's right.
and investigate at a later date.
Yeah.
So that's one thing with, that I think the state did all right with. A lot of times I don't agree with a lot that they do, but in this case, again, it's sort of creative and in a way that allows counties to have the flexibility to not be under the gun to do something here where we really don't feel we're totally informed
Right.
of going forward with these. So, but that was kind of the way I understood the funding. So that's good. Okay, do we have any recommendations or motions, suggestions to move forward?
Go ahead. I was gonna say, from my standpoint, what I would recommend is certainly the digital imaging of records. Think that is something that is needed, and as stated earlier, it'll benefit a lot of citizens who come up there looking for documentation and records and things of that nature. And the stuff is getting faded with age, so.
Okay, so that is a part of a motion from you.
That would be a motion for me.
Are we
Any
doing a
other
line item?
additions? I'm sorry.
Are we doing a line item here? Or are we doing the entire package? I was assuming we were going to approve the entire suggestion of the committee.
You can certainly pare down, you pull out a project and set it aside for later and only fund select projects on this list or a portion of the select projects.
Well, just inject a thought, Mr. Hill just talked about, there are a lot, there's uncertainties there. We don't know what Durham hasn't been approved. Their end of this rail corridor. You don't have the specifics on the splash park. So there still some gaps in information here as far as I'm concerned, but no, we can again pick one or more, whatever you want to do at this point.
Do we need to have these funds for any of these projects to at least begin preliminary work?
Well, we could do some additional research, such as further considering sites for the splash pad and bring back some additional recommendations to you for the rails to trails, see if we can get some additional specific details for you and bring those back to you without funding. There's not much progress that we would be able to make. But we
Without
could
funding? But could we have a
provide some
timeline,
clarifying.
like a timeline? Are we looking at a timeline on
information.
projects?
Well, with the Rails to Trails initiative, or Rails with Trails initiative, we are seeing that it's an opportune time to start taking some steps to conserve the land bordering the railroad, and that we have potential partners to work with to do that. So that is why this particular project is being presented at this time. And then with the splash pad, there's been a demand for that. So making the proposal and having that approved would enable us to move forward with some work to identify the ideal site and what that amenity would look like and start some design work around that. It's helpful to know whether the board is interested in it at all, you know, as far as whether or not we proceed with additional research.
Chairman Powell,
Yes, sir.
will there be a conflict of interest? Being according to Commissioner Vice Chair Sims, that somebody already bought a portion of this railway?
So that would be a private owner now who may or may not want to eventually sell that as part of this project. But as John described, there are ways around that. So if there is a break, if we're trying to create a continuous path along the railway, if there is a break because we are not able to obtain access to that particular property, then there are options for going around it.
Like physically around it?
For extending the trail so that it's no longer going straight up the rail. It might take a little detour right there and then come back.
Do
To
you
the
have
rail.
any idea how much land has already been sold?
I do not. You have a sense of,
I would have to refer to, maybe your. Yeah, I have to.
they have both been doing quite a bit of research into this. Do you want to come up, Sally?
So Commissioner Sims, you mentioned that one portion had recently been purchased.
Right,
That was about 4.25 acres last summer.
4 acres.
Yes.
Okay.
And then there is a small section where the industrial park is. The exact acreage I'm not familiar with.
Right.
And then there's a couple of little sections right about where Bruce Moore's agency just got built. And I think out of the entire 9-mile potential of the corridor, it's like about a half a mile or so that's been reclaimed by private ownership. So it's definitely not a game changer.
Right,
And the entire corridor from Roxborough to Durham is a 27-mile long corridor. So our 8 or 9 mile connection would actually gain us closer to 27 or 28 miles. Does that answer your question?
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, please.
partial response to Commissioner Palmer's question. I do not know the facts, but I would remind the board that you previously adopted a very extensive set of conflict of interest provisions that are required by federal law. All those apply, staff is very familiar with those. And we'll apply those as the county moves forward with any of these projects that you approve. Question for Ms. Kathy. I did not hear anything about any approaching deadlines for commitments of these funds that we're aware of. Correct? So the board has.
They're not. Oh, yes, you do have time. You do not have to make a decision tonight. If you have questions that you would like for us to do some additional research into and bring back to you at your next meeting, we can do that.
Another point too, and you know, you deleted the $4.5 million for from EDC, and that number was posted by the director there prior to the grant we received. That's about, it's $1 million for grading and clearing. So that million would break that down to 4.5. Part of what Commissioner Gentry is saying and others here, you could earmark part of this money if you wanted to contribute $1 million to that.
Yep.
And move along with that shell building project.
Yes,
So
and
the flexibility is the beauty part of what we're talking about here. And the other part is, it's not urgent. We don't have to do it tonight, so.
yes, if there are some questions you have about those projects that are unfunded, in particular that shell building, you could potentially allocate $1 million, for example, from the ARP dollars, possibly add some of the economic catalyst funds to that, and then create there some funding that would be an incentive for a private investor to construct that shell building through an agreement with the county on that property. So yes, you do have flexibility, and that is one of those things where you could adapt one of the project proposals.
Mr. Chair, I certainly think we probably should look at these on an individual basis, what we're looking at. Instead of grouping it all together, because again, there's some questions we have on each one of these different projects. And I mean, as I was getting ready to make my motion, unless there's some discussion about the digital imaging of records, I think we should go, my motion is to go ahead with that. And then we can look at these others down the road.
Okay, we do have that motion on the floor. Any further
Just
discussion or
clarification.
questions?
I'm just for clarification, I'm in agreement with Vice Chair. A timeline to bring these other items back on the next meeting or a month from now. I don't want to just leave it hanging. I think we
Right.
should address it and we should put a date on it. So I would,
And
a
that's fine.
substitute motion, I
And-
would say I agree that we should go ahead with the digital digitizing of the records and then the balance of the items that were on the request that be placed on the next meeting agenda.
You want information on all of the remaining ones at
Yeah.
the next meeting?
Timelines, dates, yeah, a little bit more depth of information on the projects proposed.
Is 2 weeks enough?
Well, there's a bit of a crunch since the agenda deadline is next Monday. Having
Okay.
it extended to the next meeting may just allow staff a bit of extra time to pull that information together. And if you have some specific questions, please feel free to send those to me, email those to me. And I'll make sure that we can try to answer those
Sure.
in that next meeting.
And you mentioned a ranking system was used
Mhm.
for this, and are these in order as how they ranked or?
They're not.
Okay.
And again, that was more of it helped the department heads. They were aware of what the criteria was. So it helped them in writing their proposals in a thorough manner. And then it helped us know what to look for, keep a close eye on those particular components and use that as a jumping off place for our discussion. So no, they're not in a particular order here.
Chairman Powell,
Yes, sir.
one more question, Ms. Catherine. No question. I would like to recommend if we move forward with the Kirby transformation. That is long needed accessibility. We have the money through the American Rescue Fund. And I think it's a no-brainer that we move forward with this project.
Okay,
Procedural suggestion. If individual commissioners have a particular interest in other items on this list, it might help with clarity to take action first on the pending motion and then offer another motion after that.
And I was going to say, I think.
So
All in
PJ's
favor of the motion
Well, we're-
as
I
on the
want to make
floor.
sure what we're voting on. So we're voting on PJ's substitute motion
Mhm.
for the digital imaging and to come back at our first meeting in October. Is that right?
Mhm.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
With the balance.
For October.
Pardon?
Just
First
again,
meeting in October.
I thought you said bring it back at our September 19th meeting.
We need more time in there.
She needs more
I
time.
think it would be better to
The
have
second
the,
in October.
yes,
Second
the-
meeting in October
Yes.
or the first meeting.
That would be a month from now, the first meeting in October?
yes.
First meeting in October.
First meeting.
So
Yeah.
October
Set-
3rd.
yeah.
The October 3rd.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor of the substitute motion as stated? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no motion carried. Okay. Commissioner Palmer?
Yes, sir, Commissioner. Chairman Powell, I think we should move forward with the Kirby transformation. We have a lot of children, adults with disabilities. We have the funding for this project. We've talked about it length before, several times, I believe. And I do believe that we should move forward with this.
Commissioner Palmer, I don't disagree on the importance of it, but I do have some questions and I would like at our first meeting in October to have some of my questions addressed. And if you want to move forward with a motion, that's fine, but I do have a few questions about that.
Chairman Powell, I withdraw that request.
Okay. Motion withdrawn. Any other comments, anybody, questions? All right. All right,
Okay,
Thank you.
thank y'all.
Thank you.
all right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Item number 7, appointments to the Board of Health Workforce Development Board, Upper Neuse River Basin Association Board of Directors. Madam Clerk.
Good evening. I'd like to present to you interested citizen applications that we have received for current vacancies. I would ask the board to nominate for appointment as deemed appropriate. The first board we have on tap is the Board of Health. We have a vacancy for an optometrist representative. Dr. Steve Garrett has requested appointment, and this would be a 3-year term appointment on the Board of Health.
Make a motion, we appoint Steve Garrett to the Board of Health for a 3-year term.
I have a motion, and he's the only one that has applied. Discussion. All in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried.
All right, the next board is the Workforce Development Board. This is a regional workforce development board through our Cartar cog. There is a position for an adult education and literacy representative, and Dr. Barbara Buchanan has requested appointment. She is with PCC Community College. It's my understanding that representation rotates throughout the community colleges involved with our COG area. So I'm presenting Dr. Buchanan's request with a letter in your packet from Mr. Lou Grillo, who is the Director of the Workforce Development at the COG, for her appointment. And it would be for an initial 1-year appointment.
It's a pleasure, board.
Mr. Chair, I make the motion to nominate or put Dr. Barbara Buchanan on the Workforce Development Board for 1 year.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried.
All right, and last for tonight's consideration is the Upper Neuse River Basin Association Board of Directors. Commissioner Gentry serves as the county's director on this board. And up till June, our former planning director, Lori Oakley, was serving as the alternate. So I present to you tonight, Mr. Chris Bowley, to serve as the county's alternate to our commissioner representative on this board. And he is present here tonight. And I would like to ask him to stand up for anybody who has not yet met our planning director. And ask for your consideration to appoint Mr. Bowley to serve as the alternate on the Upper Neuse River Basin Association Board of Directors for an unspecified term.
Specified term?
Unspecified. In
So that means
perpetuity.
he
Yeah.
has it until he leaves us.
Better watch your fine print. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to appoint Mr. Chris Bowley, our new planning director, to the board, Upper Neuse River Board of Directors. Did I say that right? Did I get that right?
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carried.
Thank you. That's all.
And welcome from Florida to North Carolina.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, glad you're here. Good decision. Okay. For chairman's report, a couple of things I did, at your seat was an invitation to attend a ceremony at, Merit Commons, by the Bells Across America event. The Thomas Person Chapter of Daughters of the American Revolution hosting that, and that is, of course, you've got the date and location and time there. Sort of as an update, there has been a little fresh discussion about what we call a Dan River water supply project that's probably those of us that have been around long enough been talking about for 15 years or more. And that was recently revived with a call coming from the Corps of Engineers office in Wilmington that has gotten a group together with Caswell County, the city of Yanceyville, Roxborough, and Person County to get engaged in that project again. And it's all in the discussion stage. But the positive part of it, it did come from the Corps of Engineer and did not come from either Caswell or Person County. But that's a long-term project, so to speak, that would have water line that would run and extend from the Dan River from that point, serving both the Yanceyville and Milton and into Person County. So the object there is the precious commodity of water. We do have lakes, but that would really set Person County apart as far as water supply in the future. Of course, we're talking 20, 40, 50 years or more in the future. So it's not anything that's going to happen overnight. Just wanted to make you aware that that conversation is ongoing with a third meeting plan, but no particular date. It's all been Zooming and talking so far. So just wanted to make mention of that as we move forward. Mr. Clark.
Yes, sir. I have a couple of things, or two or three things. I had a request, and I know you already have one on the old Helena School property. But I have an additional request of someone that wants to have some interest in it. And I don't know what your plans are for the future, but I talked to our county attorney for the meeting. We haven't had any discussion, so I'm not asking him to pull his pistol out. I'm sure he'll give an answer, but I think that first of all, you got to figure what you want to do with this property, and you can declare it surplus. And I remember somewhere accepting proposals on a property. We don't see the same eye there, but we know that there's a way to get rid of this property, through some kind of proposals. But I guess my point is, one, I got a couple pieces of interest in it. But secondly, this building's been sitting more than 20 years. And if you don't think it's going downhill, it is. And it's going to continue to deteriorate along you wait. And it's going to become either a maintenance nightmare or a safety nightmare. And you're going to end up tearing it down because these things happen, in particular with old schools. And I had to deal with one in my second interim assignment where they had an old school had been sitting, they were going to use it. And it sat and sat and sat. And finally the roof started leaking. It was a big expenditure. They said, well, we're going to use it. And basically what it ended up was they tore it down. And but it sat there as almost like a nuisance for about 12 or 13 years. So I am trying to encourage you to move somewhere on this building to either, look at some of these proposals, find a way to declare it surplus and get rid of it, or, tear it down, do something before it becomes where you have to do it. The second item I have is your room here that you've talked about since I've been here, and Ray has met with our architect last week, and we're just starting the process. Don't know exactly what timeline we're on, but I will keep you informed as we move along, and be sure that your input is solicited. It's extremely important. This is going to be your room, and we're still trying to make it a multi-purpose room, but still you need to make it like you want. So as this thing moves forward, I'll keep you up on it. The next item is the Charters of Freedom project, and we've talked about this. I shared some pictures with you, and I haven't had another one tonight. I shared just to kind of show, and I've talked to Dr. David Streeter about trying to relay your thoughts back from the meetings we've had, and he and I will be meeting in a week or so. He's traveling, I think, last week and part of this week, and probably won't be next week, to start getting a little better formal picture of this, and also trying to determine the cost or the local cost, so we can in turn start figuring out how we will pay for it. There is a little bit of a problem here that it's an existing monument located behind that information board there. It's honoring a tennis player, and I see it as not being a major problem, but it still needs to be considered in the final plan. But as I said, we will be meeting and I'll be getting more information back to you on that. This is a crude sketch I gave you of how I thought you told me you were looking at, so I'm not an architect or an engineer or a CAD designer or CAD drawer. The next item I have is the DSS Health Department building lease. We are continuing to work on that with Brixmor. And I think it's going to take one of those things that if Brixmor can drag it out long enough, they can get the upper hand in negotiations. So I'm telling our folks that, we'd like to see if we can get this completed by the first meeting in November, to where it's on your agenda for approval. So we'll continue to work, and we've met with all the departments over there, except the mental health part. And Mr. Chairman, I think you have a contact or something there that I can.
Yes, sir.
But
We'll get together.
we tried to evaluate, not only the new lease, but what things need to be done to the building that are desired improvements or upgrades, or just general painting and carpet. So those things we're trying to work on today too. So, but that takes care of me for the night.
Thank you, sir. Vice Chairman Sims.
I wasn't going to say anything, but since Ralph, you brought up a couple of things, I guess my question to you is that when we're talking about the old Helena School, wasn't there another company that or another group that was looking at that? Have they gotten back with us at all, or what's the status on that?
They have had some conversation with me and the county attorney, but at no point have they offered any real details to either one of us. I'll let him speak for himself, but.
Mr. Sims, other members of the board, you all heard a presentation several meetings ago from Reverend Jackson on behalf of a nonprofit entity in the county. He expressed an interest in the county conveying that property to that nonprofit corporation for the purpose of some workforce development and retraining programs. You have the authority to do that under a statute of 465. That is a purpose that the county could engage in directly. So that statute gives the board the authority to convey it to a nonprofit for that purpose. On your behalf, I asked Reverend Jackson to provide a letter with some more details about their plans, and particularly about funding. And I sent you all maybe a month or a month and a half ago the letter that we received. I agree with the interim county manager. It was not a completely detailed letter. Probably you all would like to hear more details before you make a decision, and particularly before you authorize the conveyance of that property to that corporation. It's positive that there's expression of interest from another party. I don't know how the board would like to proceed to evaluate the two, and there may be more.
So the people that you've talked to, different group, are they all looking for us to give them the building and give them land?
The second one is interested in paying you something for the building. And I think that when the attorney and I both probably have the same reservation, when you start doing these things, you want to be sure that whomever you get rid of your building to has the wherewithal, including finances, to make this thing happen. And it's so many people, if you give them something and they want it, or even if they buy it cheap, it just sits there and further deteriorates. And it could, particularly in this case, you may have it where it had a reversion clause back to you, and you may end up with a building you have to tear down. So I think that both of us have the interest of, something happening in the building, but we don't want it to be something that lasts a little while and they don't have the financial ability or the management ability to make things happen like they initially said it. It looks good on the paper we've got. It's not very detailed. It doesn't have enough detail for me to feel that I would recommend to you that you deed the building to them.
Well, I live in Timberlake and, I'd like to see something happen to that old school. Really like to see it refurbished and somehow be used, in some way, but also walk that track. And I know a lot of people walk the track and, so it's a nice place to go and exercise if you want to walk. And, it's just an eyesore with that building. So hopefully we'll eventually get something done with that.
And as I said, the longer you put this off, the worse the building gets. I can tell you that Morehead City experience was a lesson of a lifetime. And it was one that they just couldn't make a decision. And it just continued. And you got to start getting a little leak in the roof and it starts coming down through the building, or any little thing can happen. And yes, I know our folks take good care of it as best they can, but it becomes real money when you start pouring it in there. So I guess what I'm saying is if you would like, I will work with the attorney and we will try to devise some plan to, one, declare it surplus and to start finding a way to dispose of it, to make it something useful.
Right. Thank you.
I think to add to that, I think there are two paths, whichever one the board would like to choose. One is if you all have a preferred use for that property in mind, whether it's the workforce and retraining development process or proposal, or whether it's some other potential use that you'd like to see established there by nonprofit. That's one path. The other is to one of the statutory methods that you have available, offer it for sale to the public and get the best price you can for it, and whoever might purchase it, hope for the best. What you don't want is what could happen.
Yeah.
Someone buy it and then allow the property to sit there and deteriorate, causing further problems.
And I don't know if you can, when you sell it, can you put provisions on it to say, okay, you will sell it to you, but can we?
Within reason, yes.
A restrictive covenant of use and that kind of thing. Now there's the elementary school down the side, then there's the gymnasium, then there's the track, then there's what I would like to see is a map of that entire area, kind of what the county owns, because I'm thinking just off the cuff here. Could that be part of the park or the additional for future school growth? Plus recreation. I mean, we've already owned the land. We own the building. It's 20 plus. Well, it's been empty for 20 years. How old is the building? So the county's owned that property for a very long time. So we can repurpose it, reuse it recreationally, educationally, combination. I would just like to see how we could piece that together before we sell it off, because we might sell it off to an entity that's in the middle of all our other government stuff that's around it, between the fire department, where the Board of Elections has their facilities during election time, the park, the track, the school, all that kind of stuff. I think we need to consider what we have around that building, not just the building itself.
Yeah, and it's a good point about this, taking this property and not getting rid of the property, because of the fact that end of the county is growing at a large rate. And it may be another use that you want to do with it. So
it could be very valuable for us if it were cleared.
I guess I'm trying to startle your brain a little bit to get your brain to thinking about, what is it you want to do with it? Because as I said, the building doesn't get any better. And, whether you raise the building and just leave it what part is that you don't want. Or I understand the gym may be in use for Parks and Recreation, and I think one of the little buildings might be in use, but we can identify that on a map and show you, I believe, what's there, and so you can get a clear picture. We'll probably try to do that at your next meeting.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. I thought we was moving on around. I'm good.
Commissioner Palmer.
I've noticed tonight that we have a good amount of county employees here. That shows me that you guys are really interested in your county. And I certainly appreciate it. The ones who could not make it tonight, for various reasons, I hope they listen, watch this video, and know that we thank them for their service to the county. And also, I would like to recognize I'm sure you all, or you should have today gotten a letter or email from Mr. Wilburn about the SRT response last couple of weeks ago, I believe it was now. So I'd like to commend the department for responding and helping out Caswell and Alamance in that situation up there. That's all.
Commissioner Gentry,
No further comments.
Commissioner Purrier.
No report.
Okay, at this point, the need a motion to go into closed session for General Statute 143, 318, 11A6. With the following individuals permitted to attend: Interim County Manager Ralph Clark, Clerk to the Board Brenda Reeves, County Attorney Ellis Hamptons. Motion,
So moved.
discussion. Favor say aye.
Aye.
3 or 4 minutes for